I can hear you sing it through the alcohol when it's over.
Do you need to adjust that at all?
Yeah, I can bring it up a little bit.
Sure, yeah. And if you want to bring it a little closer to your face, that'd be pretty awesome.
Cool.
Just for the clarity.
Is it weird if I... Yeah, it'd be weird if I put it between my legs.
I mean, wouldn't be weird for me, but if it feels weird for you, I would.
Yeah, I think it would.
Just like the whole time straddling this microphone
I
stand.
don't want it too high because I want... Yeah, here we go.
That's for the Patreon viewers.
The VIP thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Okay, sitting down with Jacob Mallow here, 9 a.m. Thanks for coming in, man. How you doing?
I'm good.
Cool.
Doing good.
I appreciate you coming in so early. I know it's always tough waking up just to get, having a conversation with somebody. It's like you just got to have your coffee first.
Hey, we both accomplished that, so we'll be all right.
That we did.
Silence the script.
Oh, you're good. So let's talk about why you picked Nat King Cole's Love album here for us to start our day off with.
Dude, I've been into really like old jazz piano players. Like Oscar Peterson is one that I probably would have picked if I had seen it, but
my old roommate put me on to him. He would always put it on while we were cooking dinner because it was very relaxing.
Yeah, especially like that's what I was gonna say. Like, kind of as like a secondary thing. It's great for just like because it's not like what I'm inspired by the music, but I don't like write it or play it a bunch.
Yeah.
So it's nice to just have it as like something that you don't hear a bunch.
Right.
So
it's like
cool.
It influences you in a way that you can't quite understand because it's just not your natural way of writing.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of your natural way of writing, I want to talk about Neighbors. I know it has been about maybe 2 years now since this album has come out, but it's kind of fresh to me because I didn't really hear it until a couple months ago, and then refreshing myself over the last few days prepping for this interview.
Cool.
And it's fantastic, man. You work with Tommy Trautwein, WBAZ Records, right?
Yep.
So what was that process like? How do you guys get some of those sounds that you have on there?
Ooh, Alex Stanley played this organelle thing that he had.
Yeah.
He did it on a couple songs, so a lot of the synth sounds you hear are from that. Also like this Yamaha DX7 that Hampton had, I think, that he gave to Tommy. So some of the sounds were from that. Hampton played drums on them.
Mm.
So the drums are slapping. Gideon played drums on one of the songs, Morning Sun.
Dude, I wrote down in my notes for Morning Sun is transcendental. That's the word I wrote on there. Yeah. I felt like I was ascending.
That one we definitely spent like the most time on.
Oh, okay.
So,
is there a reason why it felt like it should be first for you? First on the record?
Yeah, I think it kind of told, and Zach is actually the one to thank for this because he helped me with kind of the track list at the end when I was telling him. And at Morning Sun, his words were like, it's kind of like how at the beginning of a movie, they kind of flash the whole story. And you see like a little bit of the end almost.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what Morning Sun was like, is like, here's kind of the whole picture, but it's still first. And then you'll get to actually see kind of the story play out.
Right.
Top to bottom. That's kind of what I envisioned with the album. So
I think they call that an overture. Is that
really?
the word?
I really don't know. I'm not a huge
in classical music. It's like the first piece that's supposed to like be like the intro into what you're going to hear.
Cool.
Or like intro all the themes or something.
I
guess, yeah. I'm not quite well versed in that area, but that seems like a great idea to me, almost like a taste test of like, hey, if you like this, you'll like the rest of the album. You know? So I wrote down here that there were 4 years between your first single and this album. That's a lot of time to grow and figure out who you are as an artist. Even though that journey's never really done, I'm sure there was a lot of breakthrough moments in those 4 years. What do you feel like some of the lessons were for you in between that time to get you where you were to make that album?
Definitely involve other people.
Cool.
And collaborate, even if it's not necessarily like the basic let me feature kind of thing, but literally
Right.
just involve other people in the process, whether it be the songwriting or production, mixing, mastering. I mean, you can do so much, but it's like very easy to get stuck in your head and not see things clearly when you're the only one who has eyes on it. So I feel like that's kind of what Neighbors, like the original meaning is. I wanted like to have a song with almost everyone that I was kind of running with in Athens, and it didn't work out like that by the end of it, but I had a couple of those features, and like but it's just that like the album itself is kind of a testament to like I couldn't have made it without all the other people who contributed. And so that's probably the biggest thing, because as a young writer and musician, I was always like, isolation was not something I was really afraid of, because I like thought that's what it took to like get better and stuff like that. And you know, there's some truth to like grinding it out by yourself, but the result's going to be better when you like add some fresh eyes on it and people that specialize in what they're really great at, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, getting somebody else's perspective on something can really, really just change the way a song ends up being for the better. And there's only so much you can do if you have that isolation mode on, which I am very familiar with, so I get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I feel like a lot of good stuff can start. But if you want to take it to a new level, it really can help to show it to people who you trust their ear, you know, where they can bring it, and bringing it to them and then working with them in that way. And
yeah.
but it can also be tough for people to collaborate, just because these songs, these ideas are very close to them. So what's your mindset when you go into any sort of collaboration, whether you're working on somebody else's track or they're coming onto yours? Is there like anything you have in mind going into that?
I'm not sure. I think
Like if somebody's coming on to work on a song with you, like songwriting wise,
yeah.
do you have certain things you always are like, this is what I feel strong about, but maybe these things are malleable? These are something that somebody can take and run with? Or do you just try to be an open book about everything?
Songwriting is honestly kind of strange. Like I actually haven't written that many songs with people.
Okay.
That is one area I should open up more with. And like I've written with Zach a couple times.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I actually struggle with like lyrics in front of someone else, because a lot of times my lyrics are like very revealing and like, and so, but I think that's cool. It's what like could happen if two people were to collaborate in that way, is that you can kind of get a more nuanced story, because everyone can relate to those things that you're putting down in your songs, but when it's worked on by multiple people, you can tell that it has a less personal effect, and it's more of just the wording is more like relatable in that way, because that many more people were in the room working on it. And so I feel like that's one benefit I've seen, like even with stuff with Zach, is where I can kind of focus more. If he's has something written coming in, I can kind of focus more on the music side of it, because I love like the theory behind things, and so I love that side of it. And he like that was one of his songs that just came out a couple months ago. We collaborated on it, where I just I'm forgetting Better
Days.
Yeah, Better Days.
Dude, yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, man, it was
awesome.
Killed him. He had written most of the song, and then I just played like a piano part that Hampton later played. But it sounds amazing.
It does, yeah. So we're talking about, you know, being vulnerable and sharing your lyrics and things like that. That can be obviously a very terrifying experience to show somebody what you've been working on, especially if you haven't shared it with anybody yet. Do you feel like you've gotten better with that over the years? Is there?
Yeah, I think music for me was like growing up. I didn't play a lot. I was in chorus some, but I didn't touch a guitar until I was 15, and so I just at first it was definitely like a therapeutic response to life's events at the time. And it was always something I did alone, always, it was like it was my way of documenting life kind of. And this was way before maybe not way before, but this is before I was in INBUS and thought about maybe seriously trying to do music as a career. And, still a lot to be done with that as far as like mental challenges, but, crap, what was I saying right before?
Just talking about chorus and how you picked up this guitar in order to document.
Yeah, it was just, at first it was way more therapeutic, and I think I'm growing out of that slowly but surely. I think I'll always use writing as that source a little bit, but the way I go about it is changing. My voice is kind of developing, and my style is developing too. So,
what made you want to basically start sharing these songs instead of keeping them close?
I don't know. It's a great question for 19-year-old Jacob who put out Wings of Gold.
Yeah.
Dude, I had written, so that one wasn't like that I like wrote in the Hugh Hodges music school building, and like 2 weeks later wanted to record it. And so I think it was because I actually haven't written like a ton of songs, probably like maybe close to 100 or so. But at first,
It's like 89 more than me.
well, the first like Wings of Gold was like one of the first like 2 or 3 that I'd actually finished. And so I was just hype about it. Yeah, I thought it had a good message, and so put it out there.
So something about that song was like, all right, this is the first one. Like it's happening.
Yeah, something about in that time in my life too. I guess I just was feeling more comfortable in my own skin and didn't feel like I had to hide this piece of me that really likes music, because there was something about in high school, just it wasn't. I sensed resistance from my peers, like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, you don't. Why are you writing tonight, or why are you doing this? And
Right.
It's dumb to think like that now, but
Yeah,
it was still
when
there.
it's all you know.
Yeah,
or it's
and
what
even
you're-
in college, I mean, people that don't, not just any creative lifestyle, but music in particular is one that it's hard to know the ins and outs of unless you do it yourself.
Right.
So
what have you learned having navigated this process? Like if you could go back and tell your 19-year-old self, hey, like, don't worry about this or focus on this.
Put out more music. Don't, yes, take your time, and, I really wouldn't change anything, but take your time don't take too much of your time, and just don't keep looking back on what you've made, and just keep making something else. Because you're getting better in the process, and it's so hard to know it day by day, but it's something you look a year ago and you're like, wow, I've grown so much in this, in piano playing, or I've grown so much in songwriting, I've grown so much in production, like I didn't know how to do this. And so it's like all that growth is happening, and you're just not aware of it day to day. So I feel like I've wasted so much time being down on myself, or not being proud of work I've done in the past, or not being proud of how a show went because I didn't sing it perfect on this one part. And it's like, that's so dumb to, yes, it happens to all of us, and it's like, it's okay, but it's so dumb to linger on that when there's so many other things about the whole aspect of this career that are so cool and life-giving at the same time. So
basically just don't worry too much about the past.
Yes, and keep making stuff, I guess, is the biggest thing. Because even today, like, the last couple of weeks, I'm like learning new things in Logic and downloading. I was never the person to like download sample packs and get excited about plugins. I was never like a technical person. I just liked 3 chords and the truth at first. And and I love singing. I mean, singing is my first. I was in an a cappella group for a couple of years. Yeah. And so I just love like the voice in general. I think it's so cool that everyone has like a unique voice, but crap, what was I saying right before I went into the singing tangent?
Just talking about how focusing on writing, just like focusing on the future and putting, working on your music, not as much worrying about the past.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was just saying, even in the last couple of weeks, I'm still creating new things that are inspiring me, and it's like and in new ways that are inspiring me. It's not just the same old.
Yeah.
Let's mic the guitar up or something. I don't know. It's cool to like challenge yourself in the ways that you're not 100% familiar with,
Right.
music wise, because they're like everyone is a beginner sometime at something. So it's like
you have to be
just
to be
go
good
through
at
the
anything.
beginner steps, and then you'll know a little something. And
Yeah.
It's like,
So what's inspiring you right now? Is it a different process of doing something?
yeah, like it's I guess like arcade and like this like little drum machine and sample thing I have from Native Instruments. It's called a Machine Micro or something, but it just has like the pad so I can do samples and everything. I guess sampling and honestly hip hop kind of jazz fusion is really inspiring me right now.
Cool.
And I'd love to kind of see that fuse with like a folk singer-songwriter thing.
Yeah.
I think people are already doing that a little bit, but
Well, there's nothing that hasn't really been done at this point,
Yeah.
We're just taking different things of everything and now like
Exactly.
making our own shit from it.
Exactly. And the fusions are just like, I think our generation is like the loss of genre.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's really cool because everything is fused and just what you're saying, we're taking different bits from people of the past and making something new. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting, and maybe time will prove me wrong, but what you just said about this generation and this time period seems to be like there's not really one thing or one style that defines the last 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. Just because the internet's so readily available to everyone that somebody could literally just live in their mind in the 60s for the rest of their life because maybe they only watch videos about the 60s. They only listen to music from the 60s.
right. They could curate the 60s for themselves.
Yeah, just for themselves. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can be somebody from, Alaska and listen to some, punk rock jazz fusion in Nigeria and get like all these different influences. And that naturally is not going to create one single thing that we all worship, basically.
Yeah.
We all have these different ideas and influences, and in a way it just becomes this huge melting pot. But also it's almost like a loss of an identity, maybe?
A little.
Or just like a uniform identity for everyone.
A little, but then there are the people that go into it. They're like whole history of music may not be one genre, but there are people that are like, hey, we're going to make a rock album.
Yeah.
Or we're going to make a country record and this is what it's going to be. And so I think people definitely still do that and have their niche groups too. But I think if you were to look at every past album, they would be different.
Right.
I don't think the like continuous 10 rock albums is, I don't know. I don't think that happens anymore with like a new band.
Not really.
I don't think so.
Even if I feel like it'd be impossible to make that even happen because we just change without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And over the course of years, obviously, you're going to be taking in new influences, and that's going to inspire new thoughts, new ideas. And whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you're going to end up making music that is different than what you did, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite part of the creative process? Is it the songwriting, the recording, the releasing, playing live?
I think it's the initial production, like wave of energy you get, like when you're just first starting.
Yeah,
something
totally.
that is exciting, and like it's usually for me some of the first times when people have heard it other than me, or like getting to flesh it out with someone is really cool because it's like the bringing to life process. Even before it's out, I think it's more special to you when it's something you're working on currently. And so I think honestly the production, that's most recently, like in just my history of playing music. Like that's kind of what I'm into the most right now. And both like as a producer, but even as like my favorite part would have to be an artist coming in, like, and just kind of laying out the arrangement and everything that'll go into the song. Like I love just that bringing to life part of it, I guess.
When it's like all possibilities are there.
Yeah, it's like honestly when you finish, it's almost sad. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like this is the hard part now, putting it out, like
Right.
trying to get people to care
All the
about it.
logistics. Yeah. Trying to convince people to listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, this was really the goal. This was the fun part here.
Right.
So,
It's, oh man. Yeah. It feels like if you track one's excitement for one song, there's that first day where you like, oh my God, there's something here.
Yeah.
And then it feels good, but then maybe you hit some bumps, so it goes down, but then you finish it and then you're like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
And then you start to record it and that's even better. And then there's like that weird halfway point of recording where you're like, this sounds like nothing I wanted it to be.
What am I doing? I've gone too far.
Right. And that's like the valley, the deepest valley. And then it's done. One noise happens that you didn't expect. And you're like, oh, it's saved. This is amazing. And then you're back at the top. And then you release it. And it's like, who knows, man? You just got to let that shit go.
Yeah, right.
It's tough. What do you feel like is the song you're the most proud of that you've released? I know that's a big question.
It is tough. Yeah.
Or maybe one that I asked Elijah this, and I kind of like the way it's worded a little bit better. Just one that surprised you.
Green Lights is probably the one that surprised me. It's like very folky, and it's honestly, it makes me in the future want to go like in a similar direction with some songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that song and how fast we recorded it. Really, that's kind of the main thing. Like I sang it a couple times, but we went with like the first take, and it was like, I don't know, everything just happened really quick, and we put it together pretty quick. That one, and Always in Your Company is a song that Andrew worked on 2 of the songs from Neighbors.
Okay.
And those are the first 2 we recorded, honestly, like a year before the album got finished.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been a while now, but that one was, it's cool because when I recorded the songs with Andrew, I was in like a whole different life than I did when I recorded a year later with Tommy.
Yeah.
Or when I finished with Tommy, because me and Tommy did a bunch of songs and it took a lot longer.
Right.
But there was something about those first 2 songs with Andrew that were really special too. And so Always in Your Company is the last song on the album. And it's kind of like, to me, a good like blessing over the whole story. And I don't know, like what's it called? I'm forgetting the word, but something, it's like silver lining kind of at the end of the whole thing. I don't know.
That song felt like that?
Yeah.
In what way?
It just seems really pure. Like,
okay.
Yeah. Some of there's like some angst in some of the songs for sure.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any
in that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that feel more authentic to you, or does it feels like more of a...
No, because the angst was very authentic.
That's what I was gonna say.
The angst was authentic for sure.
Yeah. So maybe it's just, it's not like a weight when you listen to it.
No, yeah, it doesn't sting like some of them do.
Okay.
Not that I listen a bunch, but Always in Your Company is like, I feel very wholesome when I listen to it. I'm like, wow, I am proud that because it's those that like, you can be very emotionally driven while you're recording, being like, yeah, this song rocks, but it's some that like sneak through the cracks that later become so cool to you.
Yeah.
And you didn't think they were in something that special.
Yeah.
And they might not be to the audience either, but to you, they're something special. So that's kind of Always in Your Company to me.
We were just talking about that yesterday with Elijah. He was saying how, I forgot. Oh, Bet the House. That's become like the one that slipped through the cracks. Song. And it's funny how there will be bands that we like that we listen to, and that will happen where you go back to an album after not hearing it for a while and you're like, oh, I forgot about this one, when you thought a different one was your favorite. Like if you start listening to it at 15, when you're 20, your favorite songs are going to probably shift around a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool how you can grow up with certain songs, especially your own, you know. You go back and you're like, oh shit, there was something here that I was not aware of in the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. When you wrote your New Year's Instagram post, I thought, one, it was beautiful. There were a couple things I took out of that I want to dig into a little bit more, and that's just your quote of no more adding when subtraction is needed. I'd love for you to just expound upon that before I even interject, but I just thought that was a really interesting way of saying things. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so that came from, I listened to this podcast a bunch called Creative Pep or something, Creative Pep podcast. But it's by a guy named Andy J. Pizza. That's like his Instagram name.
Okay.
But he's like this creative genius who helps people in any creative job like kind of unlock their potential. That's kind of what. And he's a really cool guy, but he's kind of mentioned, he has this whole episode about subtraction and how like we can put on layer after layer of different like creative fabric, whether it's literally fabric if you're making clothes, or like music, just adding another track and like another part here, another this, like a double vocal, and all that stuff has its own place.
Right.
But I kind of came to a point even with like gear and just writing, like and just sometimes the like some of the unwanted attention that being an artist does bring you sometimes is like I wanted to get rid of a lot of the fluff in like my musical life. So that's kind of where what the quote means to me is like what really is what makes something special in music, and then how can I maximize that and honestly get rid of anything else that doesn't help that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just helped me to like be more intentional about what I'm trying to do, whether it's recording or writing, or like I'm starting to step into more of a production realm.
Cool.
Myself, which is exciting and kind of crazy that I would even say that, because I've never kind of seen myself that way. And so that's another way too, but intentional I feel like is the best word from it, because it's like you don't have to. Adding things is great, and it's usually just our primary response a lot of the time, and a lot of the time it fixes the problem, or it really does help.
And then sometimes it's a crutch.
For sure, and then it just even clouds. You're one more thing cluttered now,
right?
Or you have, and so I think it really hurts the creative process when you're not able to be in a flow state. It's hard to you can't just like maintain that and hold on to it. But when you want to get rid of anything that could snap you out of it. And so spending time on something that doesn't really help towards the larger creative picture is kind of what is like a hindrance that adding keeps bringing, I feel like. And so, but huge Jacob Collier quote, like one of my favorite artists.
Nice.
He said, "You only know what more is until you've done more," or something like that. Or it's like less is more, but only until you know what more is. Meaning like you have to go through this. You can't know what more is until you've done too much. And so
that makes a lot of sense.
That's why my advice to my younger self was do too much. Like, gosh, I wish I had gone through my like, why didn't I learn music? Like, why wasn't I obsessed with music theory at 18? Why didn't I do all these other things to where I didn't have to like now have these phases later, which it's fine, but it's like you have to go through that before you can cut back, and simplify. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just the way you phrase it at the end is perfect. Like you have to know what more is in order to cut back. And I've tried recently to do that with lyrics, especially because it's pretty easy to kind of cloud your own feelings with lyrics and like be, I don't know, vague and more dramatic than based in just like exactly how you feel right now, because it's terrifying to be that honest. And yet that usually I think is what hooks people the most, is because they sense that authenticity and they sense that you're not covering all these emotions with fluff. You're actually cutting straight to the point.
Yes.
Cut straight to the heart. Same with production too, you know. I'd also try to like throw as many weird synth things in there and get crazy. And you're like, sometimes the most powerful thing is a guitar or a piano and vocals, and that's it.
Yeah.
Are there any songs you had to really strip it back for this album?
For Neighbors?
Or like, yeah, was there a song that you did a lot and you were like, we gotta bring this back? Because some songs get pretty out there, but I don't feel like it's overwhelming. They just have a lot going on.
There wasn't something we had to corral a bunch, but like Never Enough Time is one that's completely stripped back. It's just me on piano, like live, and the piano that I used to play a bunch on campus.
Yeah.
So we recorded that, but that's the only one we like. Yeah, we were solid coming in that this is what it's going to be.
Okay.
But no,
nice.
there's not one that we really dialed back. I kind of wish like we had the time to just keep going and keep going. I wouldn't have stopped ever on that album probably if no one was like, dude, you've spent too long on this.
Yeah, sometimes you just, actually, I would say all the time, you need a deadline. You need goal so that, because otherwise you'll just lose your mind.
I didn't want a goal with that one, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think for the next one you'll give yourself more of a hard deadline?
Yes. I also don't think I'll even, like, I've written plenty of songs for an album, but I don't think that's what I'll be working on.
Okay.
I think I want to crank one song out, and kind of go into the single world for a little bit, because I've always held fast to album. Mm-hmm. And I will, like, not saying I'm never putting out an album again. It's just not going to be my focus, because I think it hurt me a little bit having that focus for so long, and just the pressure of what a whole project weighs on you. So I'm excited to not think about the big picture like that quite yet, but yes, there will be another album. It's just going to be 4, 5, 6 singles before that.
Right.
And definitely some time before that, but hopefully there'll definitely be more songs this year, but album this year, I honestly doubt it.
Yeah. I mean, it is a daunting task.
Oh yeah.
And I'm with you. I prefer the album format usually. Just I end up, if I'm in the car and putting on music, I typically want to just put on an album and not a playlist. I wish I was like, could do that more often, because sometimes it can be annoying to be like, oh, let me listen to an album for like this 12-minute car ride.
With other people too who don't like it.
Yeah, they're like, dude, change it. I'm like, no, it's going to ruin the flow, man. We're only on track 3.
We're on song 3.
Exactly. But with that being said, if you're releasing your own stuff and we're not huge mega stars, putting out an album, unfortunately, for me, it feels like I might be like shafting some of the songs, because not everybody's going to want to listen to it front to back. Whereas if I can just put out single after single, each song can maybe get the attention that I feel like it deserves, you know?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's going to take us over to the last 5. I'm just going to ask you 5 quick questions and we'll be done.
Cool.
Number 1, in the studio or playing live?
In the studio.
In the studio. I don't know why I thought you'd say live.
That's just where I'm at right now. Probably would have said live a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
And I've just struggled with like having a consistent band live, because a lot of my bandmates are in other bands and busy, and which is totally cool. I love the bands that they're in, and I've also like started as a solo person, so I've gone in and out of the playing solo live. But right now I like being in the studio more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm always happier in the studio watching something come to life.
Yeah.
Question number 2, what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
Oof.
You can name a few.
Blonde.
Nice. Absolutely.
Yeba's album. It's called Dawn.
I have been told to listen to Yeba. And I haven't.
I love her so much.
Is that the one that came out last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really good. Gosh, this one was popping up. Daniel Caesar's Freudian. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah. I always forget. Is that the first or the second?
First one.
Okay.
It came out around the same time as Blonde.
The one with her.
Yeah. I was like freshman in college, and for some reason those albums like opened my mind to a whole just world of like this modern music that I hadn't really dived into much in high school, and so I think it changed a lot of my influence from then on.
Dude, Blonde was an absolute like staple when it came out for me. I mean, it still is. I'd say it's easily in my top 5 favorite albums like ever.
Yeah, it's so good.
What's your favorite track
on Blonde?
Yeah.
Ooh.
If you could pick a top 3, because it's hard to pick one.
Yeah. Solo.
Yes.
Pink and White.
Nice.
And either Nikes or Ivy, but
not White Ferrari.
Oh no way!
I know.
I changed out Pink and White for White Ferrari.
yeah. I was like, interesting. White Ferrari did actually hit me later. It wasn't It wasn't in the beginning. My favorite. Pink and White was definitely
up there.
The end
of White Ferrari is
so good, dude. I cry every time. It's like his voice is right here. I know it's small.
Frank does some awesome stuff. Dude. He's one person I wish I would love to see live, but he never plays live. Like rarely.
I almost went to the last one he did, which was that FYF Fest where Brad Pitt's like on his phone the whole time. Did you ever see that? It's weird.
FYF.
It stands for Fuck Yeah Fest in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
And I went the previous year with my friend, and that was a wild lineup. But then next year they announced that Frank was gonna play, and we were like, we gotta go. But it's, at the time we're like, that's a lot of money, and I'm sure he'll play again. Cut to 5 years later, and he hasn't played anything, and we're like, maybe we should have gone. But you saw he sort of announced that he might be putting out an album this year.
No,
I say sort of announced because he put out like the Blonde vinyl. I don't know if you saw that, because there hasn't been like Blonde vinyl, but he just like issued it basically, and of course it sold out almost immediately. But in the vinyl packaging, there's like a poster that is like this weird description of where he was at in 2019 or whatever, when he was starting to put out some of those singles, but not an album. And at the end of it, he's like, but I changed my mind, or not I changed my mind. It's like a story about an artist, but it's like clearly he's the artist. He's like, the artist decided or is starting to change his mind about the album format. And I was like, everyone, of course, is like, oh, he's putting out an album this year. And God, I hope it's true. Also, he's headlining Coachella.
Oh, very cool.
So those two pieces of information together, people are like, he's got to put out an album.
He might, yeah.
I hope so. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if he just didn't. And he's like kind of trolling everybody.
I mean, he like every 4 or 5 years, that seems about to be his, that's like his cadence.
Yeah. I think it's been, 7 now or 6? Since Blonde, because that came out in 2016.
Six, I guess. Wow.
Too long, man. Drop it, Frank. You got any other albums you want to mention? Or you want to go to the next question?
No, none that are popping up to me right now.
If any come in later.
Oh my gosh, Leif Volbeck, New Ways.
What's that?
Canadian singer-songwriter, folk guy, so good.
Leif?
Saw him at Smith's Old Bar too recently.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Leif Volbeck. It's
interesting.
It's very good. It's just like he has like some that are more,
you look it up,
like folky, almost Western, but then there's some that are like
is it Leif?
Leif.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Which one? New Ways?
Yeah, New Ways. Like, listen to his song "Never Be Back" when you have a time, and it's he like almost raps the whole song. You know, but it's like he's kind of that sing rap.
Yeah.
It's just very fast verses, but it was so cool to me because I hadn't seen a lot of folk people do that. Honestly, the only folk person I've seen do that is Ed Sheeran. Like 10 years ago, when he used to do that a lot, he'd like do rip on the acoustic guitar and rap. And I thought it was so cool. Ed Sheeran, I used to love in high school.
Yeah,
dude, no cap, I loved Ed Sheeran.
Dude, no guilt here.
Yeah, guilty pleasure.
We're
for
big
sure.
Sheeran stans. But yeah, Leaf Volpec. Okay, I'm gonna go listen once we're done. Question number 3, I have: who would be your dream artist or producer to work with? I wrote down a suggestion. James Blake.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be really sick.
Yeah, he's got an amazing voice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, talk about a voice, and his production style is wild.
And I didn't know, but I have watched some YouTube videos, and he seems very involved in it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I've spent so much time on YouTube watching him. I gotta say Jacob Collier, and just because he, number one, I wouldn't have to have another person in there.
That's
he
true.
Could play everything.
Yeah.
He's just such a creative mastermind to me too, and he's an example of someone that's done too much at times, but now knows how to cut back.
Yeah.
And so I just think his level of like pushing that limit to where you're just like thrilled by music again in some way. I mean, he's like, yeah, he'd be my number one person.
I wonder what it's like to be able to do literally anything in music. And then it's like, well, how do you strip that back?
Yeah.
Because he really can do anything.
Yeah.
It's annoyingly good.
Yeah.
You're like, how?
It is.
Like when he does the YouTube or the Instagram videos of him doing like happy 2023, but he's playing it like
playing
the MIDI. Like, dude, man,
that is
get out of
one
here.
example that's too much.
Right. Yeah. It's hilarious to watch though. I just laugh.
But that's literally just him having fun.
Right.
Drawing in MIDI notes.
Yeah. And dude, his fashion sense always keeps me wondering.
Oh yeah,
dude.
I saw him at the Eastern, and I'm pretty sure he was wearing Crocs. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Crocs with like some leopard skin sweatpants and like a tie-dye
and a
hoodie.
Rainbow hoodie.
Yeah, like, what are you doing, man?
a very colorful human being.
Yeah, a goofy guy, but a savant nonetheless.
For real.
Question number 4: what's on your musical rotation right now?
A little singing group called Tiny Habits.
Tiny Habits.
I don't know why I called them little, maybe because tiny, but they are young.
Okay.
They're like we're on Instagram or still on Instagram, but they're opening for Lizzie McAlpine. Who,
cool.
Speaking of work with Jacob Collier, she has worked with him and John Mayer. She worked on a song with John Mayer.
Oh wow.
So they're a young group that I really love. Also, Lizzie is someone that I've loved recently.
I've heard her name a lot recently, and I've never listened to her.
She was like she went to Berkeley, a dropout from Berkeley, but was a TikTok singer in college. And she would like just play like some of her songs on TikTok, and her voice is just so crisp and like it's very good.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. It's almost Broadway-esque, but like refined now into like singer-songwriter gold. It's literally so good.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Lizzie McAlpine, what was the first one? Tiny Habits?
Tiny Habits.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me, dude.
Yeah, pull out
I gotta
the
look on my
Spotify.
Spotify real quick, because
Everyone has to do that. Nobody knows off the top of their head.
right? It's like
as soon as somebody asks
Andrew
you.
showed me this group called EMOC. Have you heard of them?
No. EMOK.
EMAWK.
Oh, okay.
All lowercase.
Okay. You look that up.
And then an artist called Matt Corby. Someone.
Oh yeah.
I love him. He's put out a couple new singles.
He's been around a while. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't he Australian?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same
He has
guy.
an album. Oh, Rainbow Valley. I should have mentioned earlier, but one of my all-time favorite albums too.
Is that him? Matt Corby?
So good. And I think he has a kid, and he's not with the mom, but he kind of wrote it for the kid, I'm pretty sure. It's pretty cool though, because it's like you can Rainbow Valley. You can see how it's like it's obviously his life that he's writing about, but it's like could be intended for a kid growing up too. So
okay,
it's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like back in high school, my friend loved him and showed me some concert of his where he's performing in front of like a bunch of lights, like lamps or something behind him, and I just remember being blown away by whatever song it was. I don't remember, but it was it was like part of a live album.
Oh, I think it's from Rainbow Valley.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I just remember thinking that was sick, but other than that, I don't really know any of the stuff. But I'll give it a listen.
Yeah, he's great.
Last question here.
All right.
What's your favorite decade of music, and what's the worst?
Ooh.
2010s is an option. People forget that.
2010s, yeah. It's so tempting.
I know.
I want to say 2010s is the best, but do I?
There's a little bias. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
but that's
a little
what
bias.
I say.
Yeah,
I say that or like 60s. Or
okay, I'm going with 2010s is the best.
Nice.
I have to give worst to 80s. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Because I like the 70s too much, and I like the 90s too much too. I love R&B too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great for the 90s.
But 80s, I love the rock. I'll say it, but it's the disco for me that I can't get behind that much.
That's interesting because for me it's the hair metal that I'm like.
Okay, yeah.
Man,
I'm not there with Kiss either.
The Def Leppards, all that. I'm like, and this is coming from somebody who saw Journey twice with my parents.
That's so funny.
You know,
yeah.
But it's
our
like,
parents would never say the 80s. 80s were the best time.
Dude, yeah, they'd be like, "What are you talking about? White Snake? Come on."
Foreigner?
Yeah, Foreigner, dude. If I got to hear another Foreigner song, I'm gonna lose it. What is it? Jukebox Hero. Oh my god!
Okay, that song's a banger.
I guess, man. I don't know. Cold as Ice. That one is kind of a banger.
Yeah.
But
Jukebox Hero has the whole story though. It's sick.
It does. It's just so it's so extravagant. You know, all that stuff was so like.
Was AC/DC 80s too? I guess
I think
a couple decades, but.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's 80s. I think Back in Black was 80s. Okay, at least maybe late 80s.
That I can get behind. That.
Yeah. I mean, they created an entire genre, just like classic rock and roll, getting drunk at a bar with your friends, like singing along. They created that. So you gotta give it to them, even if you don't really get into that, you know? Yeah. That's how I feel about Jimmy Buffett too. Like, I don't listen to Jimmy Buffett, but I have so much respect
for Margaritaville.
Him. Yeah, for Margaritaville, dude. Name any other artist, musician that owns a resort chain? You know? I can't. There's nobody. So you got to give the respect to them. But yeah, man, Jacob Mallow, thanks for coming on the podcast, dude. It's been a blast. Do you have any shows you're going to be playing anytime soon you want to plug?
Early February, Flickr. I think it's the first two Thursdays. I'm playing with Suntrick Pony and then playing with Tony Hunlow too.
Hell yeah! Shout out to Tony Hunlow.
Yeah,
he's the man.
I'm playing synth for them. So
very cool. Hell yeah, nice. Is that the one the Echo locations are opening with Suntrick Pony?
For Suntrick, I think so.
Okay, cool.
It's like February.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, if you're in town in Athens, go check it out. It's gonna be awesome. But Jacob, thank you again for coming on, man. It's been a blast. Of course, dude. Check you later.
It's always gonna take some time.
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.
I didn't think that you could hurt me. You got me feeling for my heart.